Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. On today's video, we're going to be talking all about Tasseomancy, also known as tea leaf reading, and how you can do it for yourself. Tea leaf reading has been done for hundreds upon hundreds of years in many different cultures around the world, and it's gone by many different names. Some of the most popular are tasseography and my personal favourite, Tasseomancy. Now these are all terms to describe the same thing, the art of divination using reading of dregs. Sometimes this can be tea, this can be coffee, and some people will even use the dregs from their wine glass in order to read potential futures and to gain answers to questions from their subconscious mind. Now, tasseomancy can be done both for yourself and for another person, but in this video we are specifically going to be talking about tea leaf reading for yourself. There are two main methods of undertaking tasseomancy. The first uses a tea leaf reading teacup. This is a cup and saucer specifically designed for tea leaf reading, and inside will have symbols that have meanings to help you read if you aren't used to doing it yet. The other method uses any old teacup and saucer or even a mug that you have available, and it involves using a little bit more of your own intuition when it comes to reading the leaves, because you don't have any of the symbols pre-printed onto the inside of a mug or cup. Today we're going to be talking about both of these methods, and I'm going to be showing you the differences between the two and also the similarities so that you can decide for yourself which one you would prefer to use. Now, the cup that I'm going to be using in this video will be linked in the description box if you would like to get it from me, but believe me when I say that you don't need to be getting this specific tea leaf reading cup and saucer if you don't want to. There are many options out there, but if you would like to, the link is in the description box. With that being said, let's talk about the things you're going to need to prepare before you start doing a reading. Firstly, the cup you're going to use. You can be using a specific Tasseomancy teacup and saucer, you can use a plain teacup and saucer, or you can use a mug. In this video, I'm going to be showing you both a mug and a Tasseomancy teacup and saucer, because I think those are the most extreme options that I have available to me, but you're going to need to choose your item in advance, otherwise you can't make a cup of tea. You're going to want to choose something that's really visually accessible, so you're going to want something with a pale background, but also something that has a wide brim so that you can easily see into the cup so that you can get your reading out of it. You're also going to want to use something that you find easy to hold, because it's going to make it more difficult if you're uncomfortable the entire time. So if you have a very particular cup that you really like drinking from, as long as you can see the tea leaves, you can use that if you want to. Next up, you're going to need to choose the type of tea you're going to be reading. There are so many options out there. It really comes down to what you feel comfortable drinking and what you have access to. I personally like using green tea, as it's often readily available, pretty affordable and finely cut, which allows you to have a really easy reading. It essentially allows the tea leaves to spread quite evenly around. It allows them to move quite freely, which gives you a really good reading. But if you don't like green tea, you don't have to use green tea. You can use standard breakfast style teas, the kind of teas that you would get a lot in England, such as Yorkshire tea, PG tips, Thai food, those kind of things. These teas can be used with or without milk. I'll be honest, controversial opinion, I don't really like tea that much. I especially don't like tea with milk in it. But if that is how you drink your tea more often, then you can use that method as well. And then you can play around with the amount of milk that you're going to be adding in to see how it impacts the reading. Now, outside of those two types of tea, there are other options. You can go with a herbal blend of tea with lots of different types of tea mixed in. You can go for fruit tea, you can go for floral tea. Just bear in mind that the heavier the items are, the more difficult they are to read, because the weight of them is going to impact where they fall within that reading. So if you're just getting started, I would recommend going for a lighter tea leaf. Something like a green tea is really good for this. Now, some people do also read coffee dregs and also wine dregs, but this is a different topic in itself, and I will have to touch on it on a completely different video because often it's done slightly differently. Now, when it comes to the tea that you're choosing, you're going to need to have it loose in some form. Now, you can use a teapot where you strain out the leaves before it goes into your cup. You just have to allow some into the cup so that you can read from them. You can use a tea diffuser where you put it in the cup itself as long as some of the tea leaves come out of it, or you can put the tea straight into the cup. Just bear in mind that if you do this, you're going to have to drink around the tea leaves. That's what I'm going to be doing today to really show you how the leaves and their placement changes over time, but you might not want to be drinking that many tea leaves. So it's really a case of trial and erroring your way through to figure out what works best for you. But generally speaking, you need a technique that's going to put a few leaves in the cup, because if you don't have any leaves in the cup, there is nothing for you to read. Before you get started, you're also going to need a saucer and a piece of kitchen roll, or if you don't have a saucer, a small plate will suffice. This is designed to soak up the extra liquid that you're going to tip out just before you do the reading, so make sure you have that beforehand, otherwise it's going to get a little bit messy. Now that you've prepared everything in advance, it's time to make the tea. Now the tea making process is a ritual in itself. Tasseomancy is a psychic divination process. It doesn't have to use cues like tarot, oracle, or runes, and it draws on your psychic subconscious to gain answers. And so because of that, it can be really useful to get yourself into a ritual when it comes to doing tea leaf reading, as it allows us to sink into the psychic state a little bit easier. So I would recommend either being alone or be in a space where you feel safe and comfortable. I would recommend putting on some gentle music, some pagan music, whatever it is that you feel really drawn to, or you can simply do it in silence. The idea here is to focus on your potential outcome, focus on your question, or focus on the potential future as you are making, drinking, and reading these tea leaves. Now, when it comes to adding the water, you can be really fancy. You can use moon water as long as it's safe to do so. Please remember that water still goes bad. I wouldn't recommend using moon water that has gone past 3 days outside of the fridge. You can maybe push it a little bit further if it's been in the fridge, and make sure that it's water that's safe to drink beforehand and it's been stored in a safe container. But generally, I will just use tap water, and I would recommend using just after boiling water. So wait between 30 seconds and a minute after the water's boiled, because that way the tea isn't going to go bitter, which is a horrible experience. As you're pouring in the water, you're going to be thinking of your question, your desired outcome, or the potential futures, and you're going to want to allow it to steep. Now, some people will stir it clockwise, some people will draw sigils or symbols into the liquid. Now, you can add sweetener, milk, syrup if you like. Just remember that these things are going to change how the tea leaves behave. So I would recommend doing a reading without them to start off with, and then start playing around with them, because the syrup is going to thicken the liquid. The sugar and the milk is going to change the consistency, so it will alter the outcome of that reading. But ultimately, if you hate drinking tea, adding these things might make the entire experience more manageable for you, especially if it's something that you don't like to do already. So now that your tea is steeping, you're going to want to take it to the location that you're going to be doing the reading in, and you're going to want to sit quietly and mull over the question in mind, or think about the potential futures. Ideally, the entire time that you're going to be doing this, you want to be focusing on the question that you want an answer to. And this really allows our psychic subconscious to know that this is what we want to be doing a reading about. Much like how if you're doing a tarot reading, you might repeat the question over and over and over again. You might want to be doing something similar with Tasseomancy to really focus and pinpoint in on that question. Or if you don't have a specific question and you're just wanting to do a general reading, you might want to just sit and think about drinking the tea. This is something that I really like doing. Otherwise, my brain is in a million different places. I have to really force myself to focus. Now, obviously, if you really struggle to focus, you can be using other techniques as well. If you find that specific beats work to help you focus, specific pieces of music, or just something calming on in the background to really help calm you down, then that can be a good option too. It's really about trial and erroring your way through it to figure out what works, because what works for me might not work for you. Once you're nearly done with the tea, you're going to want to leave 1 centimetre or so of liquid at the bottom. This is going to allow us to really finish off the reading effectively. You also don't want to be drinking all of the tea leaves that are settled at the bottom. That wouldn't be particularly nice. So once you're down to about 1 centimetre of liquid, you are going to want to take that cup in your non-dominant hand and swirl it around 3 times counterclockwise. And then you're going to tip it upside down onto the saucer, which has the piece of kitchen roll on it. This is going to absorb any excess liquid and dump out any of the unnecessary tea leaves, whilst leaving the significant leaves behind. Now, I personally find that it doesn't really matter which hand you do this in. So if you struggle with mobility in one hand but not the other, or if you struggle with mobility in general, don't worry about switching your hands. You can hold your hands on either side of the cup if that's easier. You can do it with your dominant hand, with your non-dominant hand. Lots of places will recommend you do it with your non-dominant hand because it's often the less strong hand, and it's often a way of swirling the tea leaves around the cup without swirling them all over the side. I think that might be one of the main reasons why people do it with their non-dominant hand, but obviously not everyone is going to have an easy time doing this. So I would do this in whichever way is most accessible to you. If that's doing it two-handed, do it two-handed. If it's doing it with your dominant hand, then do it with your dominant hand. Really, it's just a case of swirling the tea leaves around the cup and then tipping it out. This gets rid of any of the excess liquid and the excess leaves. Now this is where the reading starts, and it's where the two different cups are going to have different methods of reading. So let's start with the non-symbolic teacup. This is just a standard mug from the cupboard. Now this is the style of reading that a lot of people are going to do, especially if they don't have access to a designated teacup and saucer that's designed for Tasseomancy. Now when you tip out the dregs from this cup, you're going to set it upright with the handle facing towards you. Now the handle represents yourself, and it also represents the present moment. Everything on the right-hand side of the handle is the potential future. Everything on the left-hand side of the handle is the potential past. And this allows you to split that mug in half so that you know what it means when the tea leaves fall on either side of that dividing line. That's the first layer of a tea leaf reading, whether something falls in the present or the past. But it also goes further than that. The depth the tea leaves are found in is also important. The closer the tea leaves are to the brim of the cup, the sooner that will occur, or the more recently something will have occurred if it's happened in the past. The closer to the bottom the tea leaves are, the more in the past or the future that is, depending on which side it is. Essentially, the closer to the brim, the sooner it's going to have happened. The further to the base, the further away it is. So essentially, looking down into the teacup is like looking into a tunnel. The closer it is to you, the more recently or the sooner it will happen. The further away it is, the further in the past or the future that might be. And then we start getting into symbols. Now this is the thing that really throws people off. It can be really difficult to know what these tea leaves mean if they're grouped together. And so it's going to take a lot of practice to really get the hang of it. I know a lot of people will recommend symbol sheets that they find on the internet or in books, but this isn't always the best. It's really about using your own subconscious to answer the questions that you have in mind, because that's what tea leaf reading is all about. To start off with, the tea leaves are probably going to look just like a bunch of blobs, and this is pretty reasonable, it's to be expected. But over time, as you're sitting and looking at it, you might start seeing shapes and forms appearing. It might be a vague heart or a crescent moon. It might be something that looks a little bit like a cross or a little bit like a building. And then it's about tapping into what that means to you. It's all well and good looking in a book or going online and typing in, what does a heart mean in tea leaf reading? But the reality is that this is your psychic subconscious giving you answers. No one else can have that answer. Only you can. The things that you're going to be seeing in the teacup are going to be significant to you, to your own memory, to your own history, to your own life. For me, if I saw a heart, it would mean something very different than if you saw it. If I were to see a crescent moon, it's going to mean something different than maybe it would for you. And so it's more about what it means to you, what the symbolism represents within your life. And so it's really useful to make note of all of these things so that you can come back to it at a later date if you do need a little bit more time to mull over what these things might mean. And generally, it's a really good idea to write down your tea leaf readings after the fact anyway, because it allows you to come back to it at a later point. You might find that you don't really understand a reading when you're doing it, but in a week or two, suddenly it might make so much sense, so it's really good to note it down. This method is one of the most tricky because it does rely on you having a deep understanding of yourself, of your own subconscious, and it just generally takes a lot of time to figure out the meanings and to remember the placement. But don't get disheartened if you don't get it straight away, especially with this method, because it definitely does take a lot of practice to figure out what everything means and really tap into your psychic subconscious. The other way of reading tea leaves is to use a Tasseomancy teacup and saucer. These have the symbols pre-printed inside of them, so it's less about the shapes that the tea leaves make and more about where they fall within that teacup. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to brew the tea, you're going to drink the tea, you're going to be thinking of your question. You're going to be swirling the teacup round 3 times and tipping out the excess liquid. Then when you write the teacup, it becomes a little bit different. So when you're reading the Tasseomancy Cup and Saucer, the placement of the handle doesn't really matter too much. It's actually quite difficult to get a future or past reading when it comes to using a Tasseomancy teacup because the symbols are different all the way around, so you can't divide the cup in a right-left way as you would a standard cup and saucer or a standard mug. Instead, each of the symbols has its own meaning, so it doesn't matter where the handle is because you're just going to be reading from this point forwards. But the one thing that does stay the same between these two methods of reading is that the closer something is to the brim of the cup, the sooner it will happen, and the further away something is, the closer it is to the bottom of the cup, the further away something is, and that's looking at several weeks in the future. Now, depending on the type of cup that you're reading, the symbols are going to be different, and generally the teacups will have their own book of correspondences so that you can figure it out from the book itself based on your own individual teacup. Now, the cups and saucers that I have in my collection and in my store have a range of different symbols that represent modern life. These go from everything from relationships to religion to finances and basically everything in between. But this cup also has astrological symbols at the bottom. Now, this makes reading this particular cup slightly different. Essentially, anything that's closer to the top is sooner to happen, anything that's closer to the bottom is further away. But anything that sits within the astrological symbols might give you either a specific person that this reading relates to, or it might be a specific time of the year, so a specific astrological season. So for instance, if you end up with lots of tea in the Virgo section and you're talking about a relationship, maybe that relationship relates to someone who is a Virgo star sign, or it might relate to at some point in the month of September-ish. So just bear that in mind, that it can mean different things and that different teacups are going to have different meanings. Now, when it comes to reading from a Tasseomancy teacup, you can look into the symbols and the shapes at the tea leaves themselves, or you can simply use it based on the location within the teacup. And this is what makes them so accessible for people who are struggling with Tasseomancy, who aren't used to Tasseomancy. It's a good stepping stone before being let loose with a plain teacup. It allows you a little bit more flexibility. So if you can't quite pick out shapes and symbols yet, you can simply use the placement within the cup and then gradually develop looking into the symbols over time. It just gives you a little bit more flexibility to do it that way. Now, once your reading is finished, you are going to want to thank any spirits, any energies that you feel might have assisted you, or you can just give yourself a pat on the back for doing a pretty decent reading, give yourself a bit of a treat afterwards, and then write down the things that you saw or the things that you experienced in that reading. It might not simply be the placement of the tea leaves. Our psychic subconscious can come through with lots of different things. Did you smell anything? As the tea was still in the cup, did you see anything in the tea? Were you scrying while you were doing it? Did you have any experiences with emotions or feelings as you were doing that reading? Note everything down along with a date and the question that you had in mind. Now, this doesn't have to be physical, this can be digital. You can just do this on your phone, you can send yourself a message, whatever it is that you need to do. But I would recommend, especially if you're wanting to develop this further and you're wanting to develop your psychic abilities, it's really useful to note down your readings as you're doing them, because a lot of the time during the reading, it won't make much sense, but in a couple of weeks, maybe a month, all of a sudden everything will start clicking into place and it will make so much more sense than it did before. So I would really recommend noting down your readings, especially if you're just getting started, because it can really help to progress your readings and also it allows you to track your progress. Improvement is quiet and it's slow, and this often means that you might feel like you're not getting any better at it, but if you were to look back at the readings that you did a month, 2 months ago, you're probably so much better than you were at the start, and you also might be able to add extra insight into readings that you've done in the past once you've improved your skills in Tasseomancy. So I hope that you did find this useful. I hope that you did enjoy it. This is a video that I've wanted to do for a really long time, so I hope that it does come in handy for anyone who is interested in getting started. I'd love to know how many of you undertake tea leaf reading. Do you do it a different way? Are there any little things that you add in to help improve your readings? Please let everyone know in the comment section because I'd like to hear about it and I'm sure lots of other people would as well. If you did enjoy this video, feel free to give it a like. It really means so much to me. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, video ideas, or just want to chit chat with the community, feel free to put it down in the comment section. And if you do enjoy the magical content on this channel or in this video, feel free to hit subscribe. I try to post magical content every single week. So with that being said, I hope you have a marvelous magical day and I will see you in the next video. Bye! I look completely different in today's video. I sound completely different in today's video. I will explain it all really briefly. Firstly, hay fever. It's kicking my ass. It kind of came out of nowhere. I haven't quite gotten used to it yet, so I sound a bit strange. Secondly, I look completely different because this year I have been binge watching van life content and cottagecore content, and I'm not sure at what point it happened, but all of a sudden I went, I want to dress like that. So now I have two different styles that kind of come out randomly. Most of the time when I film, I am like full alt goth, that kind of stuff. But today, cottagecore kind of wanted to say hi. So we are now dressed like this. Do I have pink lipstick on? Yes. Do I kind of hate it? Yes. But also now that it's on, I kind of don't want to go through the effort of taking it off. Do I hate it? No. Do I just think it looks kind of weird? Yeah, I kind of think it looks a bit weird on me. But I'm already here now. Cottagecore has come out to play, and we are just going to have to deal with it. And basically, every time the sun shines, my brain goes, you know what would be cool today? Let's go wander through a field of daisies and pretend to be a pixie. And that is basically how today has gone. It is sunny for the first time in about 2 weeks. And I got this dress yesterday, and I feel like a fairy. So I decided to wear it like it's all pretty. I'm very happy about it. I have yet, however, to take off my pyjama bottoms that are underneath it. So I am still me, because I'm still wearing my super comfy pyjama bottoms under a dress, like a normal person. Also, before I fully dive into this video, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who has supported the merch. If you do not know, I released merch on the last video that I did, and it's a design that I've been working on for about a year, and I am so happy with it. I've been playing around with different designs. It's been about 2.5 years in the making, and I finally came up with that design, and I love it. And it seems that a lot of you really liked it as well. If you haven't seen the merch video, I will link it in the description box. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who has supported me on that, because it means a lot to me, and I would love to make more designs in the future. And that's what I've kind of been working towards. So yeah, exciting. Okay, let's go. I've been sitting here for 10 minutes talking to myself. What is new? Absolutely diddly squat. I can't even judge my hair anymore because it's not curly today. So I just have to... I didn't oil my hair. Should I go do that? I'm procrastinating. Also, these are so cute. These earrings. I got a few comments on my last set of earrings as well. These ones are from Little Doe. Phenomenal, amazing creator, and they make the most amazing jewellery. So if you want to know where my earrings are from, Little Doe. My battery is now on 84% because I am still procrastinating. Though it doesn't have to be used. Wow. Words. Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. You can hear my dishwasher. I'm like wondering what the clicking sound is, and then I'm realising, oh, that is my dishwasher. Hey everyone. My hair keeps doing this fuzzy thing. Little fuzzy bits. You disappear. Thank you. Thank you. Now, Tasseomancy goes by many people. That doesn't make sense. Now, there are so many options out there, and in the longer... Wow, my voice broke like a 12-year-old boy. Whew. Oh boy. Lots of words. Wow. Words. I really hope that this all comes together because I have not filmed any of the B-roll yet. That's me doing any of the readings with the teacups or anything because I'm chasing the light. It is quite a cloudy day and this was the first bit of sunshine we've had. So I've had to film this bit first and the B-roll second. So I have no idea how this is going to go. So fingers crossed that everything works out or I'm going to have to do this again and I really don't want to. I'm making the cups of tea now. I think this is too bright. Oops. I'm making the cups of tea now. And I accidentally forgot to film the B-roll of me like showing the cups before I put the tea in them. So I've just made so much work for myself because now I have to make the tea, drink the tea, film the B-roll that I can, wash the teacups, dry the teacups, and then show you the inside of them, instead of just doing it in the most sensible order. I am annoyed at myself. What is new? Okay, I'm gonna go make this tea now. I forgot to charge my other camera batteries. Funsies. We might be here for a while. Just saying. This is boiling hot. And I have to pee so badly. Not bad.